Thank you so much for joining our info session today about the 300 hour that's starting in April. And I am so happy to have Erin joining us for this session. So I thought we would actually start with the module that you're teaching. So then that way we can honor your time and you can go on with your day. So I'll just say that the 300 hour is broken up into two modules. The first one is in person and the second one is virtual. And the virtual one's a lot longer. It's actually a 6 month program that will be meeting 10 hours every other weekend. So 20 hours total a month. And within that module is the lovely Mrs. Erin Moon, who's going to be teaching anatomy, applicable anatomy, as well as restorative yoga. And since we have her with us, I'd love you, Erin, to just kind of give us a little bit of background of who you are, and then why it is that you teach what you teach because you're so great at it, and then what you're looking to offer in terms of this program.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clara. Thank you for having me. And hello. And for those who might listen later, hello. So a little bit about me. I've my yoga journey is usually kind of the focus. Although, I was born and raised in Calgary. I now live in Vancouver. Clara and I know each other because we both have New York lives. And we met actually in New York, and then she moved to Vancouver, and then I stayed in New York, and then she moved to New York and I moved to Vancouver, and then we both ended up back in Vancouver. So that's how I know Clara. That's how we know. And we taught at the same studio in New York, which was a Sonic Yoga in New York. And that's how we met. And so my yoga journey started in theater school. I think we did like some sun salutations. And then from there, I trained at Sonic Yoga. And then over the years, one of the ins for me was the the philosophy was harder for me at first because it was much more foreign to my particular upbringing. And so it took me actually coming from it from an energetic point of view and a body point of view to start to hear the philosophy, which I think is a sometimes considered a bit of a backwards way, but I think it is a way. We all learn very differently, and I'm very kinesthetic and experiential. And so that the anatomy and the kind of concept of how the body was receiving the practice and what how the practice affected my experience as a human being, I loved to break down. I have a bit of the maven in me and I like to get to the bottom of something. It's part of how Clara and I meet each other as human beings. And that is why anatomy was an interesting kind of in point for me, because it helped me understand in language I was already familiar with some of what might be happening with my body. And it actually opened up all of the spiritual texts, philosophies that are the base and fundamental practice. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And that meant that I just started getting to the bottom of it. And I started teaching anatomy in 2009 in different programs. And since then, how I teach anatomy, and this is specific to this program, has changed. And it's been really wonderful to have a relationship with Clara for as long as I have, because she has also watched what I teach and how I teach shift in my deepening of what is it to teach yoga, to teach anatomy in a yoga program, what is actually applicable knowledge, and what is things that you just kind of got to learn on your own and get some flashcards and learn names. It's a whole nother language to learn. Um, and so now my basis for teaching is from the perspective of what is our first, what is, where do the philosophy and the body meet in the energetics of our body, in the nervous system, and our fundamental relationship with the nervous system. So I teach a lot of neurobiology in my program, and I teach a lot about the nervous system as a whole and kind of how the practices and philosophies, the really fundamental practices and philosophies of yoga work with the nervous system from a biological point of view. And then the other part that I focus on now, much less than I ever focus on bits and pieces now, is how we create change. Because I believe the fundamental practice of all yoga is in the bringing of us forward. So kind of coming north of neutral, people will say, or like thriving or deepening or widening our view and widening our perspective of our existence and our connection. And so, how we create change in the body and the actual fundamentals of tissue biology and how change actually occurs in the body, and so that we can place our goals with our clients and place our goals in even a large classroom setting in a more mindful way to hopefully create the environment for embodiment. Because I can't create embodiment in anyone else, just like I can't create safety in anyone else, but I can create an environment where hopefully those opportunities are available to the most amount of people in that room. And I can then make choices that are about, oh, what do I want to do to actually create the potential for change in the energetics of practice and the nervous system in our practice and the actual tissues in our body? What is and how am I creating the opportunity for change? So that's where my focus is a lot more now. Is in I do a big section on the nervous system. It's one of kind of the biggest slide decks that I work with. And then I do a focus on tissue biology and then exercise science. So debunking a lot of kind of ideologies that we have around that there's one thing, there's a panacea somehow for all things in life when it comes to the health and wellness of our bodies and our minds. And I talk about what is exercise science and then how does yoga fit into that as a physical practice. If you were to take out all of the philosophy, which I don't actually know how you do that, but if you were, how does it affect the body and potentially affect change and actually have limitations as well? I talk a lot about the limitations of the practice of asana in change, fundamental structural change in the body. Yeah, and talk about stretching and deep. I talk a lot about kind of what do we know changes the body as far as stretching goes, and then what are the opportunities and lack of opportunities in strengthening when it comes to yoga asana, and that's where I focus.
And then the other part that you'll also be
Oh, yes.
offering is some restorative yoga, one of our both of our loves.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for the prompt. I was like, right, right, right. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And as with all of my teaching, I like for it to grow as I spend time gestating on things. And uh, I really believe, again, because I'm an experiential person, that breaking down even a fundamental kind of few poses is about getting people to think outside the box. So there are schools of restorative yoga that have kind of come into the Western paradigm of yoga over time. And I really am a big believer in what is the fundamental aspect of restoration, of restoring energy to the body and being with the restoration of our energy and feeling what that's even like to be present. I always talk about being in the movie and watching the movie, and that is the big reward of these practices. And so, what I want to do is break down those poses. I have 6 sessions with you, and for us to spend a half an hour at the end of each one of those sessions, because it's going to be anatomy and slides, which makes your brain melt. And and then at the end to actually spend a 20 minute to half an hour section breaking down the pose and experiencing poses, and then being able to present some of kind of that structure to you so that you can begin to think outside the box and continue your individual education and experience and um, experimenting with how am I approaching the restoration of energy in restorative yoga and the opportunity for restorative poses at the end of classes, no matter what kind of modality you're teaching at the beginning of a class or to teach a whole class. And how do we structure that? Using some of the tools we already have, and then also thinking outside the box, which I love.
Thank you, Erin. And I just wanted to say, add to that, as both of us being longtime vinyasa practitioners, and we love moving and we love doing wild and crazy things. I think we both on our own came to restorative yoga in terms of it's a wonderful counterbalance to to the activity. And activity is really important, and then the rest is also really important. And so, yeah, I would say the last two programs, Erin's been with me for quite a while. She was also part of our 200-hour teacher training in terms of anatomy and restorative, but we've been bringing it into the 300-hour more the last two programs with restorative, just in terms of, again, yeah, this idea of countering what came before and how we can really set up for rest for Shavasana. And a wonderful way to do that is to actually rest inside of a shape being supported by props. And so, yeah, we brought this portion in, which I'm really, really excited about. And it is a wonderful way, I'll tell you, after doing many hours of anatomy, to literally be able to, after you've melted your brain, listening to Erin, who is very entertaining and a wonderful teacher, but it does use a particular part of the brain that to come into restorative and to melt your body after that really allows for all melting to occur, and hopefully to yeah, to feel restored even after doing a lot of learning. And so that's how Erin came up with this idea. And I'll also say that pretty much none of the virtual component will be recorded except for Erin's portion. And the reason being is I find specifically it's action packed with what you're offering, especially with all the slides. And it is a really wonderful opportunity to be able to go back and refer to it, because every time we revisit things, it shows up in a different way. And so to counter that, I will be offering more of the subtle body practices in the virtual component. So meditation, mantra, and pranayama. And so in that way, those will be more about the experience and experiencing it together. So those portions will not be recorded, but Erin will be recorded. Just again, to honor your time, Erin, I just wanted to kind of put it out to the rest of the crew. If you have any questions for Erin, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can unmute yourself or put it in the chat. Either way is great.
And I just wanted to mention that all of the materials that I'll be using outside of the restorative material has been developed over many years by me, but also in conjunction with Jesal Parikh. You might know that name from the Yoga is Dead podcast. And we've been working together for about a decade, and we've put a lot of this material together, and we co-use this material. So I just think it's important to say her name and her huge contribution to my growth and education, to be co-teaching. I've co-taught with her in many different programs. And so just the material's not just mine. It is created also by my friend, Jesal.
Erin, you're more than welcome to stay, but I also want to honor your time. I'm going to
Thank
go
you.
over the rest of the module, and I'm stoked to have you as always.
Yay. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to it. Sending you goodness.
I'm going to pull up the PDF and just kind of go through it. And I'll stay with the virtual portion first just to finish that, and then I'll go into the in-person. And before I do that, if there is any questions that you want to ask about the program itself, feel free to ask now. If not, I'll go through the PDF and then we'll go through it at the end. I'm easy either way is what I'll say. The virtual component, as I said, it's 200 hours, which is like a good chunk of time. And I really wanted to put it into bite-sized pieces. I will say that I've been teaching this program since 2013, and I used to do it in not bite-sized pieces, in that the first part of the program was 3 weeks long in person. Then you had 6 months of homework, and then we'd come back together for 10 days. And I found, at least after COVID, and I also have a little one, parsing out that much time has been harder, at least for me, to be able to do. So it's wonderful that I feel like we've come a long way in terms of virtual or online courses. That being said, I want this to still be very much an in-person experience, in that I want everybody there the whole time. You can miss in the online component, you can miss up to 10 hours, but not more than that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not recording it, is I want us to be together. Again, this program is designed to be small. Like, I don't usually take more than 10 people. And I do that so that we can build a community together. It builds more intimacy when there's less people. The other reason I do that is just so that I can give you a lot of individual attention, specifically in terms of your teaching and office hours and those kinds of things. So then that way, my goal is for you to walk out of this feeling super empowered, understanding what it is that we've gone over, and then finding the way that it fits in the teaching that you already have and or the education that you already have. So that being said, as I mentioned before, Erin's component, which is the applicable anatomy, is quite dense. And so I like countering the density with Erin with stuff that's a bit more ephemeral or ethereal. And so in the virtual component, we'll go over what I've written here, right? The art of mantra and meditation. And so mantra is a very large part of my practice and a very large part of my lineage. And so we'll go over a lot of different mantras, their meanings. And then the other part about that is everybody's going to guide. So everyone's going to guide meditation and mantra. So we'll learn how to do them. We'll do them in our own practices, and then we're going to bring it and practice it together. So a lot of this whole entire program is everybody teaches. And part of that is A, so that we get peer-to-peer feedback, and B, so that you can practice in an environment where, in a safe environment where you don't have to worry about what's going on with other people. You can just explore and figure out how it works for you. So we'll go through all of those. The other thing we're going to do, which happens at the end of the last couple months of the virtual program, is the sacred scriptures. And so there's a book list here at the back. Let's go. It's a long book list. I'm going to tell you it's 12 books. If you're going to be joining us, I tell people that's why it's part of it now. I'm like, start reading now. But that being said, you don't have to have read all of the books by the time we come to this. So the sacred scriptures part will be that we will go over every single book. We'll go over 10 of the 12 books in this program. And you can show up with having read it or skimmed it or not at all. And then what will happen that's different than other programs is that it'll be the students, it'll be led by you guys. And so at the beginning of the program, once you register, it's usually if you're only coming for module 2, I'll give it to you once you register. But if you're doing the whole program, module 1 and module 2, I will give it in April. I'll give everybody the title that they will go over. And essentially what you will do is create a PowerPoint as if you were presenting this to a group of people, and go through the book itself, creating discussion questions, and then a PowerPoint of how it would work. And the idea of that is that I want to teach you how to teach, so that at some point maybe you'll go and either teach students or teach other teachers. And so this is a way to prepare you for that. The next thing we'll do in terms of the subtle body series is pranayam. So that's the third part of the subtle body, working with different techniques, how they work, and then also teaching each other. So that's, again, a piece of it. And then with more of the subtle body work, I also am going to bring in some pranayam practices from the martial art I used to study called Qin Lung, as well as a lot of visualization, chakra, and meditation. So we're going to go super esoteric. I've studied with many different teachers in terms of meditation and visualization, and so we'll be going through that. And then one fun component that we're going to do is called feeding ourselves on and off the mat. And that'll be homework that you'll be given to find inspiration in your everyday life. And then we'll come back and discuss. So you might go and make an earth altar. You might have to go dance somewhere. I'll give you different exercises to do that is hopefully fun and engaging, that gets you to think and feel or experience your everyday life in a different way. And then another big component that I'll be teaching that's more anatomical, kind of along the same lines as Erin, is prenatal yoga. So I'll teach you prenatal and postnatal yoga. So how we offer modifications in class for people who are coming to a regular drop-in, or if you wanted to lead prenatal or postnatal yoga, we'll go over that. So you should feel quite ready for that if that's something that you want to do. And I feel like everybody should know prenatal, postnatal, just because 90% of people who practice yoga are women. So it's inevitable that you will probably have somebody in your class. Any questions on that before I go into the in-person portion? That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah. So if you are, I'll just say one thing. If you know that I give all of the dates ahead of time for the virtual portion. If you know that you are going to miss some, you let me know and I will record those ones for you. Okay, specifically for you, and then I'll put them in a Dropbox file and then you can get them. But ideally, no more than 10 hours, just because then we're not going to be cohesive as a group. But I will record those if you need them. Okay, so you would just let me know ahead of time. Okay, so the in portion one is pretty much all technique. I've broken it up where the first portion is all the stuff, since I don't have you for that long, that I would teach that I feel like only really works when we're in person. And so the ways that of that is sequencing and sequencing, hands-on assists, and then we're also going to go through Ayurveda. So I'll just move through this. Um, I'm going to go over wave theory, which is created by my teacher Shiva Ray, but I'll also go over mandala sequencing, classic vinyasa sequencing, and essentially, will start right off the bat working into sequencing because ideally, everybody will teach 1 to 2 classes within that 2 week period. And so we'll start the day with me teaching a 2 hour practice, and then we'll end the day, or just a little bit before the end of the day, with one of your peers or you teaching a yoga class every day, and it'll be a 1 hour to 90 minute class. We'll kind of discuss that as a group, and then after that, we'll sit in a circle and give feedback. So you'll give yourself feedback, and then we'll do peer to peer feedback, and then we'll do what I like to call the nitpicking, which is like I usually write a lot of notes for that. And I can, if that is something that you want, go into the nitpicking in terms of languaging and sequencing and all that. And so the joy or the gift of that is, again, we don't get a lot of feedback in class, right? Because people are not coming to think about what you're doing. They're coming to connect to themselves. And so peer-to-peer feedback, I feel like, is one of the greatest assets that we can give each other as teachers to become better teachers. And so there'll be a lot of that. Within wave theory, we're also going to go over what I like to call krama by krama, which is stage by stage. I find my experience of a lot of classes is that people with advanced poses just give the advanced pose, and either you can do it or you can't do it, which I don't find very empowering for everybody. So we'll literally go, we'll go through peak poses, krama by krama, from the first most foundational variation of the pose to the most advanced version, and then going through who and how would we want to walk these through. That way, ideally, everybody in the room feels empowered to do something. Okay, so we'll go through that. I'll go through the mandala sequencing. I'll also, within krama by krama, I do what's called the open level class. I find that most classes these days are open level, meaning you have the person who showed up who's been teaching or practicing for 15 years, and then you have the person who's never done a downward dog in their life. And so how do we create a class where the person who's been here for a long time feels taken care of, and the person who's never done yoga has been taken care of? So we'll go over, this is, I feel like, one of my specialties because I've taught open level classes for so long. So I'll go over just ways of making everybody feel, again, empowered to make the choice that's going to work for their own bodies. Okay. Hands-on assist is another big component of this program. Again, we'll get into that probably, I think, day 2 or day 3. And then ideally, you will be adjusting. You will be working on those hands-on assists. So one person will be teaching every day, and then another person ideally is assisting that class. Okay. And that, again, is going to be part of the training to just, I don't know about you, but like after COVID, I feel like we're slowly starting to feel comfortable to be together and touch each other. And so this has been a mission for me since, about a year and a half, that I'm really trying to bring back hands-on assists, just to, to, to empower our students in the way of touch, with the healing part of touch. And with that comes along the conversation of consent, which is always a wonderful one to talk about. So we'll also get into that. And then last but not least, in the module, we'll also go through Ayurveda, what it is. We'll do all kinds of fun practices in the Ayurveda tradition. And again, just less about walking away to teach it, but more about how to bring it into my life, how to bring it into my practice, because Ayurveda is known as the sister science of yoga. They go hand in hand. I feel like it's a really important one to explore. So we'll also go through Ayurveda. Okay. And all of this is happening on Vancouver Island. And I'll just say, depending upon where you are in the world, you can either fly in to Vancouver or Victoria. We have 6 people who are currently, or 7 people who are currently registered in the program. And so with that, we will arrange carpooling so that everybody will get there. So no problem. Okay, we'll figure that out together. And then the first day is orientation. So it's just the travel day, Saturday the 12th. We'll start at 5 p.m. The following Saturday we have off, the 19th. So our meals are included on that Saturday. Our breakfast is included and then nothing else. Because ideally, I would love everybody to like maybe go check out Victoria or go explore. And so that will be your day off. We'll have practice in the morning, breakfast, and then you have the rest of the day off. And then the following Saturday, we end at 10 a.m. because again, it's a travel day. So the first day and the last day are travel days. Our daily schedule is pretty full. So I'll just say that. We practice from 7 to 9 a.m. and then we have breakfast. We have essentially the two breaks of the day are 90 minutes so that we can eat and maybe take a minute to ourselves. We are nestled. I don't know if you looked at any of the photos of Eagle Nest, but it's a the photos actually don't do it justice. Let me start there. It's a beautiful, it's a house essentially that we'll be living in the middle of the forest. There's a stream literally right beside, and there's a sauna that's on the property. We have washers and dryers so we can do our own laundry. And then there's lots of little hikes around. So we're really nestled in literally the place of nowhere. You can't walk anywhere to a store. So just FYI on that. Bring all your things. And then on Saturday, we can go out into the world and come back. Okay. Um, yeah. So the food we're being nourished by my dear friend Shady Cranston, who owns Homegrown Living Foods. She is a farmer and has a deep passion of healthy, delicious food. A lot of what she makes is sprouted. So I'll just say that it's plant-based with a little bit of dairy. She always puts that on the side. Very, usually gluten-free or very little gluten. I can't remember the last time she served us gluten. So I feel like for most people's dietary restrictions, we'll say we can usually find them no problem. She's also very good with any other dietary restrictions. The food is absolutely delicious. So it's like one of my favorite things about being with her when we go on retreat and teacher training. So I'm stoked to have her again. And then I just want to go over. Okay, so if you're doing the whole 300-hour program, if you haven't heard this before, I call this the honors program because it's actually quite extensive. It'll take about 2 years, realistically, 2 to 3 years to finish this program, just with all the homework that comes afterwards. So besides the contact hours that we have that we're going to be together, ideally there's mentoring with me. So this is where we would meet a couple times between the sessions or afterwards on Zoom and just essentially go over anything that you're working on. Or yeah, so I usually ask people in the first of the program to figure out what their goals are as a teacher in the program, and then I'm going to help you support you through these mentoring hours to make sure that you get where you want to go with that. The other portion of this is in the whole program. There's co-mentoring. There's 12 hours of co-mentoring. You'll be buddied up with somebody. And if you live in the same area, we'll try to buddy people up in the same area. But if you don't live in the same area, it's on Zoom. And you'll either co-teach each other or record one of your classes, send it to the person, and then receive feedback. And again, this is just part of us really delving into and helping each other to grow as teachers. The next part of it is ideally you come and assist me for 8 hours, and that could be on retreat, that could be in another training, that could come to Vancouver and just come to my public classes. Ideally, I'd love to do hands-on assist. I'd love you to see you doing hands-on assist. So that's what the program is, that part of the program is about. And then I'll give you feedback between each one to get you to really dive into it. And then the 3-day intensive is, it's already going to be part of the program, but depending upon how many hours you have, if you need to make up hours, I offer these 3-day, 2-hour intensives at 6 hours for the 6 hours. So you can make up your hours in there if you need to. Okay, and then the non-contact hours, there's 30 of them. You are going to write a book report for every single book. So 12 books total. They only need to be a page long. This is where it gets tricky depending upon people. I will say that in my 300-hour that I took with Shiva, we had to do this, and I really liked it because it's asking us to create a discipline for ourselves to show up and do this work because it's not time stated, right? And it's on your own, you're in your life. So how do I find the time to educate and study while I'm moving through my day-to-day life? So that's part of what this is. And then after you finish your book reports, I read them, make sure that I feel like you understand what it is that you read, and then I give you an exam. It's about, I think, 40 questions. You have 2 weeks to do it. It's an open book exam. It's like not a big deal. It's just more like I want to make sure that you understand the concepts of what it is that you're teaching. We go over that together, you and me. and then you get the certificate. I usually say that after the second module, you have a year to do the book reports. But that being said, I really believe in adult learning and that life is happening. And so if you ever need extensions, you can have as many extensions as you want. You just have to ask for them. So that's part of like the self-starter, like knowing that the date's coming up. I think I need more time. You email me. I will always say yes. I'll always say yes, but that you are on top of it so that, again, it's still in your mind of what you're doing. Okay. That being said, if you're not interested in getting the certificate, the 300-hour, you don't have to do these book reports. I have a lot of people who go through this program who just do the contact hours, and you'll get a certificate for each of the modules that you do. You just won't get the full 300-hour. With this, we also payment plans are available. Technically, if you were going to do the program, it's already due, but we can absolutely we can work with you in any way that works in terms of monetarily and things like that. And you can do both modules separately. You don't have to do them. You could do just one for continuing education, depending upon, again, time, resources, all those things. If any questions do arise, feel free to shoot me an email. It's info at my name at ClaraRoberts-Oss.com. Feel free to shoot us an email. We'll take care of it for you. And yeah, we've got 3 spots left in the full program, 2 spots left in the online or the virtual component, 2 spots left in the in-person, but we've got lots of spots in the virtual. We can have more people, just the in-person we can't because of the house. Thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, if you have any questions, let us know. Bye.